Hear the untold story of Uzzah and the Ark. Who said Uzziah is not innocent? What are your arguments? He was killed by God because he genuinely wanted to help steady the ark of CONVENANT. As he touched it to adjust it out of his zeal and kindness for the work of God, he was struck dead. Uzzah, a man who was killed by God because he genuinely wanted to help adjust the falling ark of God. What was the sin of Uzzah, who genuinely wanted to just help adjust a falling ark? He wasn't rebellious. He wasn't a sinner. He didn't curse God. He just tried to help. And God killed him. One moment, Uzzah was a faithful man, guiding the ark of God with honor. The next, his lifeless body lay beside it, struck down by the very presence he tried to protect. Why would a loving God do that? What was his sin, that he cared too much? Or is there something deeper God was teaching us through Uzzah's death? Welcome to Deeper Bible Story. Today, we uncover the story that few dare to question, and fewer dare to understand. Was God unfair, or were we too casual with his glory? This is the untold tragedy of Uzzah. The sun rose over Judah with fire in its breath. Birds sang louder that morning. Even the wind seemed to whisper a holy rhythm through the hills. Something was different. Today, God was coming home. The streets of the city were alive with color, song, and motion. Women danced with tambourines. Children ran barefoot through the crowd. Trumpets pierced the air, and cymbals clashed with prophetic joy. King David, wrapped in fine linen, led the parade. His heart burned with passion, not just for revival, but for the return of the Ark of the Covenant. The sacred chest, once veiled behind temple curtains and burning incense, had been exiled, left in the household of Abinadab for decades. A relic. Forgotten. Untouched. Until now. David had one dream: bring the glory of God back to the center of the nation. This was not just a political move. It was personal. How can we lead without the presence of the one who leads? How can we fight battles, build cities, sing songs, without him? And so, a new cart was built, fine and polished. Strong oxen were yoked. The ark was lifted, with care, onto it. Shouts of victory shook the earth. Among the chosen men for the sacred task were Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, the very family that had housed the ark for years. To them, this wooden box covered in gold was no mystery. It had sat in the same place for so long it almost felt like furniture. Uzzah, strong and confident, walked beside the ark as it rolled forward. His eyes scanned the path ahead. He was a Levite, loyal, trusted, a man raised beside holy things. But maybe, too close for too long. Maybe the sacred had become common to him. Still, his heart beat with pride. He had lived with the ark. He had protected it. And now, he was helping return it to the city of David, to the heart of the nation. The crowd sang louder. The procession gained momentum. Dust rose beneath the hooves of the oxen, and the golden ark shimmered in the morning light. God was on the move again. But so was a test. And no one, not even Uzzah, saw it coming. The roads of Judah were not smooth, winding, dusty, worn by generations of footsteps, animal hooves, and old war chariots. As the ark traveled, the wheels of the cart rattled and rocked. The oxen trudged through uneven terrain, their muscles straining under the yoke. Laughter and music covered the sound of uncertainty beneath the cart. Then they reached Nacon's threshing floor, a place where grain is separated from chaff. A symbolic place. A prophetic place. A dividing place. And at that exact moment, the oxen stumbled. It happened fast. The cart tilted. The Ark of the Covenant, that golden throne resting atop divine mystery, began to slide. The crowd gasped. Time slowed. And then, Uzzah reached out his hand. No prayer. No hesitation. No second thought. Just reflex, the way a man might grab a falling child or catch a lamp before it crashes. He did what made sense. He did what anyone would do. He touched the ark, to keep it from hitting the ground. But what happened next didn't make sense. There was no thunder. No voice from heaven. Just a sudden, terrifying stillness. And then, Uzzah collapsed. Right there beside the ark. Struck dead. Not by the stumble of oxen, but by the anger of God. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and he struck him down, and he died there before God. 1 Chronicles 13 verse 10. The music stopped. The cymbals clanged to silence. The tambourines fell from trembling hands. And King David, worshipper, warrior, psalmist, and friend of God, stood frozen in horror. He was not just shocked. He was furious. Furious with God. And then, afraid. How could the God who invited praise now strike down a man in the middle of worship? The Ark of Glory had become an ark of grief. Uzzah died doing what looked right. He wasn't drunk. He didn't defile the ark. He didn't curse God. He simply tried to help, to protect God's throne. So why did God kill him? Wasn't he being noble? Didn't God want the ark on it? Didn't David mean well? It feels cruel. It feels unfair. But beneath the surface of this tragedy lies a painful and eternal truth. You can't handle the holy on your own terms. You see, the Ark of the Covenant wasn't just a box. It was the very throne of God on earth, guarded by invisible fire, surrounded by glory too deep for eyes to behold. God had already given instructions. Exodus 25, the ark must be carried by poles. Numbers 4, only the Kohathites, a family of Levites, could transport it. Never to be touched. Never to be placed on a cart. Not even a new one. The Philistines, pagans, had once returned the ark on a cart, 1 Samuel 6. And in copying the methods of the ungodly, David and Israel invited danger into their worship. Uzzah's death was not a punishment for kindness. It was a collision between good intentions and divine instruction. God was drawing a line. He was saying, you will not reduce my holiness to human logic. Yes, Uzzah was sincere. But sincerity is not a substitute for obedience. Familiarity is not a license for irreverence. Worship without reverence is performance. And here's the deeper ache. Uzzah died not because he was wicked, but because the presence of God had become too casual to him. He grew up in the same house as the ark. It stood near him every day. What others trembled before, he passed by. What others bowed before, he brushed near. He tried to steady the one who steadies the universe. And God said, enough. The tambourines were dropped. The dancing turned to mourning. Where there had been celebration, now there was confusion and silence. David was stunned. He had dreamt of this moment for years, restoring the Ark of the Covenant to its rightful place in Jerusalem. But now, the road was stained with the memory of a man who only tried to help. How can I ever bring the Ark of God home to me? 1 Chronicles 13 verse 12. It wasn't a rhetorical question. It was a cry. From a king. From a worshipper. From a man who loved God, but now feared him more than ever. So David did something unexpected. He called off the parade. No more singing. No more dancing. The instruments were packed up. The banners were lowered. The people, confused and disappointed, returned home. But what about the ark? David couldn't take it to Jerusalem. But he also couldn't leave it in the open. So he left it in the home of a man named Obed-Edom, a Gittite. Perhaps it was a test. Perhaps David thought, let's see what happens to him. And then, the unexpected. Obed-Edom's house didn't suffer. It flourished. His crops grew greener. His flocks multiplied. His children laughed louder. His wife smiled more. His home, once ordinary, became saturated with glory. The ark hadn't changed. But the approach had. God wasn't dangerous. He was holy. He didn't want to harm his people. He wanted to bless them, but only when he was treated with the honor he deserves. When news reached David, it broke something open in him. The ark wasn't the problem. The method was. David went back to the scrolls, the ancient laws, the commands given to Moses, the fine print of reverence. He saw the truth plainly. The ark wasn't supposed to be carried on a cart. It wasn't supposed to be touched. Only the Levites, and only by the poles through the rings, and only with sacrifice and fear and trembling. David had treated the holy like a national treasure. But it was more than that. It was the very throne of the Almighty. So David called a meeting, not of soldiers, but of priests. He looked them in the eye and said, "Because you did not carry it the first time, the Lord our God broke out against us. For we did not consult him about the proper order." 1 Chronicles 15 verse 13. And then, they prepared, not just the ark, but themselves. They washed. They consecrated. They studied. They worshipped. They repented. And when the day came, the Levites carried the ark on their shoulders. There were no shortcuts, no carts, no borrowed methods from the Philistines, only obedience. And every 6 steps, David ordered a sacrifice. Every 6 steps, blood on the ground. Every 6 steps, a reminder, this is holy. Every 6 steps, worship and reverence. And as the ark moved forward, nothing went wrong. In fact, it went gloriously right. David danced, not in presumption, but in gratitude. The people sang, not in ignorance, but in awe. And this time, there were no funerals, only favor. The second journey with the ark didn't just succeed, it redeemed the first. David had learned something most never do. Doing God's work your own way can cost you everything. Uzzah wasn't the villain, but his casual approach to holiness exposed a tragic flaw in the hearts of a nation. They wanted God, but on their own terms. But God's presence doesn't bow to popularity, or urgency, or sincerity. It demands obedience, because his holiness is not negotiable. Was God unfair? Maybe by human standards, yes. But Uzzah's story wasn't about punishment, it was about principle. God was making a point at the beginning of something sacred. You cannot carry glory your way. You can't bring revival on the cart of convenience. Uzzah reminds us, that even believers can get too familiar with holy things. That good intentions must be aligned with God's instructions. That disobedience, even in service, can be dangerous. That the presence of God must be honored, not handled casually. Was God unfair to Uzzah? Or were we unfair in assuming that good intentions are enough when handling the divine? Uzzah's story is a warning, but also an invitation. Don't approach God out of familiarity. Approach him with fear, love, and obedience. Because when you honor God his way, his presence brings life, not death. Favor, not fear. Blessing, not burden. And finally, Uzzah's death was not just a judgment, it became a lesson that protected the nation for generations. What do you think? Was God too harsh? Was Uzzah simply a victim of holy protocol? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if it made you think deeper than the Sunday school version. Share with someone who thinks sincerity alone is enough in service to God. This is Deeper Bible Stories, where we don't just read the word, we wrestle with it.